And we are pleased with my colleague Sophie, who is also on the call, to organize this first webinar of the Asia Pacific GPP network, which is supported by KEITI, the Korean Environmental Agency. Today we have a very nice agenda. We have first a presentation on the Philippines GPP implementation, which will be given by Ms. Rowena Ruiz. And then after a session on questions and answer, we will have a presentation of China's GPP implementation and development of Ecolabelling. And this will be delivered by Mr. Zhang Hang from the Treasury Department, Ministry of Finance. And the second part on the Ecolabelling will be delivered by Mrs. Zhang Xiaodan from the China United Certification Center. So before we start with, before I hand over to Rowena, I would like to briefly present the program or the network. And so I'm going to share a short presentation. That you must have now on the screen. Can you confirm, Sophie, that you have the presentation?
Yes, I confirm.
Okay. So I'd like to recall the purpose of the network. So the aim is really to strengthen the capacity of national governments in implementing GPP, and this will be done through the establishment of a collaborative regional network. Network is jointly organized, as I said, by KEITI and UNEP. UNEP, both our Asia Bangkok office and the Paris-based, where I am, SPP team. Network is supported also by the South Asia Cooperative Environmental Program and contributes to the objectives of the One Planet SPP program. It aims at synergizing its work also with the activities of the International Green Purchasing Network and other initiatives supportive of green public procurement. It also engages a broader spectrum of key stakeholders to ensure a broad dialogue and cooperation, as was the case of our former network, which lasted from 2013 to 2016. Some of you were part of this network, so we're really building on this earlier network of GPP and Ecolabelling. So we aim at increasing the capacity of partner countries to stimulate markets for eco-friendly products and services and to implement SDG 12.7. We want to serve as an information platform for GPP, promote awareness and build capacity, support and amplify the work of the One Planet program in the Asia Pacific region, and identify concrete needs of the countries for the introduction and implementation of GPP. There are two levels of membership. There is a core group comprised of representatives from national governments, government agencies. They are in charge, who are in charge of designing and implementing GPP policies. And there's a second level group, which we call the larger network, which encompasses various GPP stakeholders, which range from across academia, cities, provinces, national multilateral banks, financial institutions, NGOs, public interest advocates, IGOs, private sector, etc. So far, we have 71 members from 19 countries as of March 2021. And this webinar is, of course, open to the two groups. In terms of core members, there are 15 members from 11 countries. As of May 2021, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Cambodia, China, India, Indonesia, Korea, Myanmar, Philippines, Sri Lanka, and Thailand. And in terms of larger networks, we have 77 members from 19 countries. And you can see on the screen the distribution. What are the planned activities for 2021? We have, first of all, the monthly webinars that we will organize on the progress of countries, but also on thematic aspects like sustainable infrastructure, food waste reduction, sustainable procurement in the health sector, in the ICT sector, energy efficiency, eco-labeling, etc. And in parallel, we're sending out, we're also developing a newsletter which is focused on the Asia Pacific region. And please share with us relevant news that you want to share to the network. Share with the network. And we are also maintaining an Asia Pacific GPP network LinkedIn group page. Here's the link if you haven't yet subscribed to this page. We are also working on supporting the monitoring of progress in GPP of GPP in the Asia Pacific region through the development of national fact sheets and the assistance in the measurement of SDG 12.71. We have been collecting questionnaires on GPP implementation to feed country fact sheets, and we're planning to publish case studies based on the experience learned from the GPP Plus project supported by Korea. And the third pillar of our work will be the organization of capacity building sessions for core members. We will soon share with you the program of this capacity building program, these capacity building sessions. Thank you very much, and I think we're now ready to hear from our colleague Rowena. So without further ado, I will hand over to you, Rowena. Maybe Sophie will upload the presentation, I think.
Hello, yes, thank you, Farid.
Thank you.
My camera is currently disabled. I don't know if it's...
Yeah, but we can see the presentation. Can you?
All right. Okay, yes. Thank you so much for that. So I think Sophie will be helping me with our presentation. So let me begin. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Rowena Candice Ruiz. I'm with the Government Procurement Policy Board Technical Support Office of the Philippines, and I'm glad to be able to present to you the Philippines GPP journey. I call it a journey because as with anything procurement related, it's very dynamic, it's continually developing. And so I am very, very happy to take part of this afternoon's event so we can each share and learn from each other. Okay, so can we go to the next slide? Okay. All right, thank you so much. I'll just keep my video off for in the meantime, just to make sure we have good audio quality. All right. So I'm very certain that with every country's GPP journey, the question of why do we need to switch to green comes to play. And I'm very certain as well of the answer that we have. We need to be able to work towards sustainable consumption and production, making sure that the use of services and related products would have minimal effect to the environment. But I want to emphasize that in the Philippines, one of the more important principles that we are espousing is that green procurement is responsible procurement. And that is why you see the Philippines, the government leading the way. We need to be able to leverage the immense procurement purchasing power of the government as the single biggest buyer in the market to be able to push towards green public procurement. Can we go to the next slide, please? So in the Philippines, you might be asking how it started and when it started. It actually started way back in 2004. With the issuance of an executive order where green procurement program was established in order to support local suppliers, green products of local suppliers. So it started more, I would say, limited and parochial in scope. Then jumped about a decade after in 2013, where we had this support from the EU Switch project. And this is where a more definitive approach and course of action towards green public procurement began. After about 3 years, so this is where the GPP roadmap started to be developed, and in 2016, with the approval of the 10 common use supply items and 10 non-common use supply items were with green criteria or green specification. I'll talk more about that later. I'm just giving you a snapshot of how it began and where we are right now. Actually, a year after, in 2017, is when the formal adoption of the Philippine GPP roadmap with the technical specifications embedded in the 10 CSE and non-CSE items I mentioned earlier. And last year in 2020, we were in the process of reviewing and updating our GPP roadmap, and it became quite obvious for us to have GPP steering committee created to be able to effectively monitor and implement the GPP roadmap for the Philippines. Now let's go to the next slide. You might also want to know how the Philippines did it in terms of adopting a green public procurement policy. If we can go to the next slide, please. And I would have to say that as I learn more about GPP, I noticed that there really are differing ways by which countries approach this. Okay, in the Philippines, I will focus on the 5 important approaches that we implemented when we began working on our green public procurement strategy. First is that it has to be a circumspect approach. What does that mean? We look at our pain points. What would be the issues and challenges that the Philippine market, the Philippine procurement practitioners would have to face when we adopt GPP? Okay. And for us to be able to really effectively strategize, how GPP will be adopted, it has to be also stepwise. We cannot do it overnight. We have to make it, we need to be able to really embed it in the system. And so we need to make it gradual. The development or the advancement of GPP in the Philippines. And because we want to make it circumspect and stepwise, we need to be able to build on well-established public procurement processes. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. You need to be able to make GPP work as an effective mechanism towards a more open, competitive, efficient public procurement, which we already have in the Philippines. So we just need to be able to embed it within the current procedure system. And fourth is that there's a need for us to emphasize that GPP isn't just about our sustainable development goals. At the end of the day, a more practical objective of it is for us to be able to look at the best deal. Look at best deal, meaning value for money. Not just looking at the most or the least expensive product, but really looking into value for money, which includes policy objectives such as sustainable development. So as among those that would incorporate or be a component towards value for money, not just the first cost, not just the one with the least cost. And finally, we need to be able to inspire adoption of GPP by leading the example. So that's why in the Philippines, the government is leading the example towards green public procurement. Now let's go to the next slide. I also want to emphasize the 5 GPP roadmap strategies that we have implemented and still implementing. Of course, the policy commitment. There's a roadmap that has been adopted by the GPPB, the Central Procurement Policy Office in the Philippines. There's also a list of 10 non-CSC and 10 CSC items. CSC are common use supply items because in the Philippines, CSC items are required to be procured centrally through what we call the procurement service. On the other hand, the non-CSC items, these are items that procuring entities independently procure on their own. We have embedded green criteria in these 10 CSC and 10 non-CSC items. And we led the way in terms of communication and awareness. And finally, of course, there has to be efficient and effective implementation and monitoring. And that is why in 2020, we went on to review our roadmap. And we are now looking at the data, which I will share some of which to you later, on how we can improve and enhance our GPP roadmap, including strategies. Next slide, please. Okay, I did mention to you the 10 CSC and non-CSC items. I just wanted to give you an idea of what they are. They are now shown on your screen. And for you to also have an idea of how they came about, how they were identified, we use an assessment matrix, also focusing or adopting the approaches I mentioned earlier. For instance, in terms of a more circumspect approach, we look at market readiness, cost implications, and practicability. Of course, because this is a green specification, it has to have environmental impact, but those that are related to the items that we are procuring. So it can be a green specification, an additional green specification, or perhaps a replacement to an existing specification, but this time identifying or highlighting the environmental impact of that specification. And of course, it has to be able to support governmental environmental objectives and the local economy. Next slide, just to give you an idea of what we have in terms of data. insofar as adoption of procuring entities, because one thing you have to remember is that the policy is voluntary. In terms of the non-CSE items, it's not yet mandatory, but for the CSE items, it is. You are the procuring entities are mandated to procure it with the procurement service, so it's mandatory, but not yet for all. So far, we have seen an increase, gradual increase, about 14% in the year 2019, insofar as procuring entities adopting green specifications, and insofar as procuring entities buying or really supporting the CSE items with green specifications. Okay, there's been an increase in these items, as shown in the graph. Next slide. Now, what are ongoing initiatives? As mentioned, with the government leading by example, the GPPB Technical Support Office is also leading by example by promoting eco-friendly materials. So outside of the 10 CSC items, we are also looking into other items that are supportive of green public procurement, and we are embedding this in our capacity development program. So we're looking at venues that are green, that has been considered implementing green policies or products. For instance, in our tokens or giveaway items, even in the materials, we are no longer printing materials in our capacity development programs. At the same time, we are hoping to expand the list of CSE and non-CSE items covered, the one that I earlier mentioned, and we want to be able to strengthen partnership, and that is why we are really aggressively participating in events like this. Next slide. Insofar as how we plan to refine our current GPP roadmap, we are really relying heavily on the study that we have been conducting since last year, the FGD, the surveys that we have been undertaking, and these are just some of the results that we have seen so far, as this is preliminary. But I would want to relate this in the challenges that we are facing and we expect to face and continually face, and this is where the areas we would like to work on in the future. Can we go to the next slide? So first of all, there's really a need for us to sustain the GPP reforms. There's been, in our organization, one of the challenges really is the need for us to be able to ensure knowledge transfer. We've noticed that the employees or the individuals who have been trained before in the past are no longer with the organization, and there's really that great difficulty to be able to sustain the reforms if we don't institutionalize or ensure the transfer of the knowledge. At the same time, there's a need for us to mainstream GPP trainings. Right now, it is still dependent on requests, but we need to be able to make sure that GPP will be among the core modules in our training and capacity development programs. It's not only an aside, but really something that we will push. There's also a need to integrate technical skills in GPP. Right now, there's really not a lot of people in our organization who would be not only aware, but who would have some basic knowledge on green public procurement. So we need to be able to integrate the technical skills. Next slide. And this would mean, of course, some institutional changes as well, not just training or capacity development. Insofar as own capacity development program is concerned, we hope to start rolling out nationwide GPP trainings. We need to be able to build GPP champions, and that's what we're doing with our trainers. We do have procurement trainers in our organization, and want to be able to build GPP champions from within. And we are looking into also working with the private sector, ensuring market opportunities on GPP. So we've already laid out plans in our next procurement summit to involve our SMEs, so that they would really take part in implementing our GPP roadmap. Next slide. Insofar as procurement monitoring, last year we launched our procurement dashboard. We included there an item on green public procurement so that we can monitor effectively real-time compliance on GPP. We also launched pilot implementation last year of our IRPP, or Interim Review of Procurement Performance. Simply, it's what we call procurement diagnostics. Using the data analytics we see in the dashboard, we are able to advise procuring entities on strategies how to implement, enhance further their procurement implementation. And one of the items we've included there is Green Public Procurement. After the pilot implementation last year, we will be doing the second phase this year. So we are really quite excited on how GPP would become a very important component of our procurement diagnostics project. Next slide. In terms of procurement policy, we're going to use the data that we have compiled since we started reviewing last year. So we have a more data-driven approach in terms of how we expand, if that's where we're going, and how we can better improve the policy, if it's going to be mandatory, and how would the transition be in terms of implementation. And we're really looking into incentivize both the suppliers and also the procuring entities who would be really pushing for GPP. And this is where we really want to learn, especially from the other countries, and how to effectively incentivize the implementation of green public procurement. Next slide. I want to end by just giving you some of the takeaways in the 2 years or so that I've been with the organization. I wanted to be able to share what I think would be most important when it comes to GPP implementation. First of which is really building on existing procurement principles. It can be processes, it can be the system, because that's where you can really leverage the system itself in making GPP an effective mechanism towards strengthening the procurement system, not something else, not working in silo with the current procurement system. Number two, it's important to engage stakeholders. While the government leads by example, if the government does it alone without having regard to or consultation with the private sector, even organizations, and that's what we have been doing also since last year, we've also been engaging with private organizations in helping us out in the implementation of the GPP. And finally, that we really need leadership when it comes to green public procurement. And it doesn't have to be just one person who's really leading the way. Leadership can come from all of us. So we need to build champions among us, whether in the government, private sector, or even in civil society organizations, in helping us improve on and enhance our green public procurement implementation in the Philippines. And that's the end of my presentation. I'd be very, very happy to entertain some questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Rowena, for a very informative and beautiful presentation, and also congratulations for the great progress of GPP in the Philippines. I visited, you get many applauds there. I visited 10 years ago, and we started things, I guess, with Dennis. And now I really am so happy to see the progress that has been achieved. And you've come really a long way since we planted the first seeds back in the 10 years ago. Okay.
Thank you so
Dennis,
much,
I think, has it's a great pleasure and really beautiful efforts there.
Okay,
I also have a question, Rowena. Maybe you can take a few questions. I would like to know what kind of if you were able to set up a GPP unit.
Sorry, I did not hear that.
Yes, were you able to set up a GPP unit, and what are the resources that are available?
Right now,
to
that's one
develop
of the
GPP.
Sorry, Farid. It's one of the things I noted earlier when I discussed sustainability of the reforms. There may be a need to also incorporate institutional changes. That's one of the things we are looking into. That's also one of the recommendations that is really coming up in our review. Right now, we don't have a separate GPP unit in our organization. It's embedded in our regular function, and that is why it has really become quite challenging to have to mainstream the program and to have a nationwide implementation. But that's one of the things we're looking into. We're looking into expansion not only of the CSC, non-CSC items, but also expansion of our office, physical expansion in terms also of not just having a GPP unit. We don't know yet if that would be the design, but in terms really of expanding how we can further our support and assistance to procuring entities in the Philippines. So we're really looking into that.
And do you get a regular budget, for implementing GPP from the government?
We do have a regular budget, and
State?
yes,
Yeah.
we do have a regular budget. It's not identified for GPP because it is embedded, as I mentioned. There's no separate unit. It's embedded in our capacity development program, embedded in our monitoring. So what we do is we use what we have right now, and we incorporate or embed GPP in among those priorities that we've had in monitoring, particularly in capacity development.
And do you have, in terms of monitoring GPP, I think you provided some figures. What are your plans?
As I mentioned earlier, currently we do have what we call the EPCPI. That's the Agency Procurement Compliance. It's patterned after the MAPS assessment, but essentially it looks into how the agency has procured over one whole fiscal year. But because there's lag in the processing and in the evaluation, we're now looking into more real-time monitoring. And that's why we started with the procurement dashboard project. We embedded green GPP questions. If they have adopted GPP criteria or green criteria in any of their non-CSE items, what are these items? So we're really looking to develop the data so that we can have a more data-driven policy recommendations to our board. So that's number one. The other thing that we will be launching this June is the second phase of what we call the IRPP. It's essentially a procurement diagnostics program where, based on the procurement monitoring report submitted to us on the first semester, we will advise agency on how to further improve on their procurement performance. And one of the items we are looking into is green procurement, if they are already implementing. If not, we will be asking them the questions on why, and we will be suggesting on what items they can actually embed, because a lot of people can feel that GPP can be overwhelmed by GPP. They might think it's very complicated, it's very sophisticated, when in fact it can be as simple as the 10 CSE items that I have indicated earlier in my presentation. So we're very excited to really learn from how the other countries are monitoring and enhancing their GPP implementation, because we are in that process in the Philippines right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
And are you building your electronic platform for procurement?
Yes, we have what we call the PhilGEPS, the Philippine Government Electronic Procurement System. It's being modernized to be called the MGEPS, the Modernized Philippine Government Electronic Procurement System. And we're really hoping that that would help us in getting real-time information as well. Because right now, we had difficulty by itself getting the data I showed to you earlier. And with the modernized PhilGEPS, I think this would greatly increase the quality of the data and also the time, the processing time, for us to be able to present them.
Thank you, Rowena. My last question is, are you still getting cooperation funds for development of GPP, or you're relying on your own funds?
Right now, we are relying on our own. We did have some technical assistance last year. We're hoping from GIZ.
GIZ.
Yes, GIZ helped us in the review of our roadmap, and which would be the basis of our recommendation for enhancement of the roadmap, and also including of which the institutionalization of GPP in our organization. Hopefully this year we'll be able to get one, but it would really depend, because of the pandemic really skewed a lot of the plans, including for GPP. Right. So, but even without that, we're really looking into this opportunity that you have provided for us, and also so many other platforms out there available virtually that we can really work on in the meantime.
Great.
Yes.
Are there
Thank
any
you.
other questions? If not, we move to China.
Yes, I can see we have several questions in the chat box. So first we received a question from Ms. Tanya Harris saying, thank you, Rowena. Excellent to see the national initiative. I would like to understand more how the national SPP GPP targets, goals and processes are being rolled out to the regional and municipal teams. Do they have their own targets and processes, or is this being applied consistently and cascaded down?
I think if we're talking about the sustainable development targets, the proper office to discuss the process would be NEDA, the National Economic Development Authority, not my office, but in terms of how we have been rolling out the GPP, not the Sustainable Development Goals for GPP, but the GPP roadmap in terms of public procurement, that's our office. We don't have specific targets yet to that level because we are starting to mainstream the capacity development program that we have right now for green public procurement. But we can, if you wanted to understand more, you can drop us an email and we can refer you to the appropriate office in the NEDA, the National Economic Development Authority of the Philippines.
Thank you, Rowena. We also have a question from Ms. Lunchacorn from GIZ in Thailand. What are the eco-materials that will be promoted? Are they type 1 certified materials or others?
That's a very good question. One of the things that we are really, I guess, has been quite a debate, when it comes to the Philippines' adoption of green public procurement is if we are going to resort to eco-labeling, because right now we have adopted, again, building on what we have currently, we have adopted green specifications, green technical specifications or criteria. And one of the things we're looking into is that if we are moving towards a form of labeling or certification, we want this to be also established within the system. So we're now already looking into which particular government agency would be able to do that, because one of the things that we really want to be able to look out for is the cost. We don't want this to be an added cost, number one. We also don't want this to limit competition. So we're still in the process of identifying. We're not looking into just one form, not just eco-labeling, not just green criteria. We're looking at ways to be able to mix all of these possible mechanisms. But currently, we're just into green criteria because we are looking into what we already have. And one of the ways by which we would need to learn more is how we can incorporate some level of certification where the suppliers, including the procuring entities, need not have to spend additional costs, did not have to add on to the period of evaluation. Because right now, one of the main gripes of procurement practitioners in the Philippines, including suppliers, is that sometimes public procurement can take a very long period of time. So we don't want to add into the layer in the process. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. We also had two questions related to monitoring. So we have one from Ms. Wang Ting from CEC in China. Thank you for your presentation. Just wondering what kind of monitoring of GPP will be undertaken.
As I mentioned, we're looking into the reports submitted to us as the policy office in the Philippines. In the reports, there are questions and there are items indicated there, including the use of green criteria. What are these items? So that's the kind of monitoring we're looking into right now. The other thing that, of course, we're looking into is looking at the procurement service. As I mentioned earlier, we have a central procurement body that would procure all CSE items. And I mentioned there are 10 CSE items with green criteria. And we are monitoring how they are procuring, including how agencies are buying from them. So that's the kind of monitoring that we are looking into.
Thank you. There's a last question from Van Turn, and then we have to move to China. It says the pilot of GPP was launched last year. What are the pilot targets which are relevant to GPP?
I'm sorry, which one?
Do you have pilot targets? pilot targets?
Right now, no pilot targets yet for GPP. We're still reviewing the roadmap, and we're hoping to finish that this year. So no definitive targets yet.
Okay, and the last question is there mandatory regulation in implementation of GPP? And everyone is thanking you for the presentation.
Yes, the mandatory aspect would be the procurement of CSE items, because this is mandatorily required to be procured from our procurement service. So the 10 common use supply items, we are working towards the next, the other 10 non-CSE, but not yet mandatory as of this time.
Okay, Rowena, I'm going to thank you very much for this excellent presentation. Everyone is pleased to have attended and to have listened to you. Can you, if there are any more questions, can you respond in the chat box? If there,
sure thing. If you can just also endorse them to us if we miss to answer any of them. Thank you so much.
We will do that. Thank you. And now we're ready to give the floor to our colleagues from China. And the first presentation will be by Mr. Zhang Hang from the Ministry of Finance, Treasury Department.
Mr. Zhang Hang, can you please unmute yourself?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Camera?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So first, I'd like to thank you to invite us to attend this meeting. My presentation is about Green Procurement Policy. Here is my two colleagues from our department. I'm from the Green Procurement Division, Green Procurement Division for Foreign Affairs, and the gentleman here is from the Green Procurement Administration Division. So their division is in charge of the whole supervision of the administration of the procurement activities of the whole country, and my division is in charge of the issues related to the foreign affairs about procurement. Let me begin my presentation. Okay.
Thank you very much. Can you please share the camera as there is no presentation?
Yeah, I do not have any like slides, so I will give you a brief introduction of China's green procurement policy. So, as world's largest developing country and major responsible country, China has always sternly fulfilled its commitment to sustainable development and encourage a green, low carbon and recycled production and lifestyle. To this end, China has successively developed and modified the Energy Conservation Law and the Renewable Energy Law, Circular Economy Promotion Law, Cleaner Production Promotion Law, and other series of laws and regulations, adopt various measures to vigorously promote energy saving and emission reduction, and realize green and low carbon development. The Ministry of Finance of China, as the Supervision and Management Department of China's gun procurement, attach a great importance to the gun procurement policies to support green development, continuously improves the green gun procurement system, optimize the implementation mechanism, and focus on promoting green procurement from the following 4 points. First is procurement of energy-saving products and environmentally labeled products. Since 2004, China has developed a policy of compulsory and provincial procurement of energy-saving and environmentally friendly products, and has published 22 government procurement lists for environmental labeling products and 24 government procurement lists for energy-saving products. In 2019, China improved the implementation mechanism for government procurement of green products and no longer publishes lists of energy-saving and environmentally friendly products, but instead publish a list of items. So energy saving and environmentally friendly products that fall within the scope of the list of items can be supported through compulsory procurement as long as they pass relevant national certifications. Currently, the list of items includes 43 types of energy-saving products, such as desktop computers, and 92 types of environmental label products, such as passenger cars. For products that are not included in the items list, procuring entities are encouraged to comprehensive factors such as energy saving, water saving, environmental protection, recycling, low carbon, regeneration, and organic, and refer to relevant national standards and industry standards. Put forward relevant green procurement requirements and promote the application of green products. So it can be seen that the implementation mechanism of China's green procurement has been continuously optimized. In terms of the coverage of preferred products, it has expanded from the energy saving and environmental protection products in the beginning to the energy saving and environmental protection, recycling, low carbon, renewable, organic, and other products. In terms of the support policy mode, it has evolved from sole product list to classification, formulate green product procurement requirement standard, supplemented by items list and other models. So from the perspective of operating mechanism, from the prerequisite of related certification and results of testing and certification can be used before procurement. During the procurement activities or during contract performance, in recent years, the scale of national priority procurement of environmentally friendly products has accounted for more than 80% of the scale of procurement of similar products. Green procurement has played an important role in reducing government agency expenditures for energy, promoting enterprise energy conservation and environmental protection technology advance, expanding the market for green products, guiding social consumption behavior, and achieve sustainable economy and social development. The second point is that the government procurement supports green building materials to promote improvement of building quality. From the construction to operation of buildings and structures, the carbon emissions of China's construction industry accounts for about 40% of the total carbon emission. In recent years, although China's green building materials industry has achieved considerable development, it still faces many difficulties in promotion and application, and the promotion effect is not significant. The main reason is that the current support policy for green building and related materials are mainly from the supply side of building materials companies and construction companies, and lacking requirements on the demand side, and are mainly advocate and voluntary, lacking we do not have any compulsory requirements. So the Ministry of Finance actively use government procurement policies to support the promotion and application of green buildings and green building materials, together with relevant department, and strive to solve the mechanism problem from the demand side. In October, pilot was carried out jointly in 6 cities and support green buildings materials and improve building quality. In the procurement needs, requirements like the use of green materials, steel structure, assembly styles, etc. are clearly requested, and explore the gun procurement requirements of different building types for green buildings and related materials. The third point is to promote the use of green packing materials in gun procurement. In order to help fighting against pollution, China spread the use of green packing in the field of gun procurement. In July 2020, the Ministry of Finance and the relevant department jointly issued the Government Procurement Demand Standard for commodity packing and the demand standards for gun procurement of express package. Stipulates that the environmental protection requirements of plastic, paper, wood, and other packing materials used in commodities, as well as the environmental protection requirements of express packing, and guide suppliers to use packing products that meet the requirements of recycling, organic, and renewable. At present, packing manufacturers actively benchmark with the standard to promote the green of the source of packing industry as a key link in the use of green express packaging. Express logistics companies actively build a green supply chain and jointly promote the implementation of the standard together with upstream and downstream. This policy has also had a positive impact on the formulation of industry standards. The fourth point is support the green procurement of key products. Ministry of Finance also actively plays the guiding role of government green procurement policy to support the development of new energy vehicles. New energy vehicles has been included in the list of gun procurement items for environmental labeling products, and priority procurement had been implemented. During the 14th five-year plan of China, government agencies and other public institutions will also take the lead in the use of new energy vehicles. Ministry of Finance is cooperating with relevant departments to study and propose the proportion of new energy vehicle procured in new and updated vehicles. In principle, new energy vehicle should be equipped such as law enforcement and commuting in relatively fixed routes. And we also guide Hainan province to implement monetary procurement of domestic clean energy vehicles, increase government procurement of new energy vehicles, and introduce measures such as supply chain management and whole life cycle management. In the central government entities, fixed point procurement plans for furniture, printing, and automobile maintenance, it is clearly required to use low volatility raw and auxiliary materials. And in the next step, energy saving and emission reduction is our common mission, and we believe every country, nation, every company, and the individual is duty bound. We will further improve the green and low carbon gun procurement policy and increase support for low carbon products in accordance with the goals and requirements of achieving carbon peaks and carbon neutrality. The first is to improve the gun procurement demand standard system for related products, embedded more low carbon indicators in the relevant government procurement demand standard, and increase the procurement of low carbon products. The second is to research and develop government procurement standard for green buildings and promote application of prefabricated building and green building materials. The third is to further increase support for government procurement of new energy vehicles and support the development of new energy vehicles industry. The last point is to do a good job in the implementation of government green procurement policy, reshape the operation mode of government procurement through modern information technology, and continuously improve the supervision capability, operational efficiency, and service level of government procurement, and implement the green procurement policy. So that is my presentation today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zhang Hang, for this really broad overview of your achievements and progress on green public procurement, and congratulations for the excellent results. Without further ado, I will now hand over to your colleague. I think it will be Ms. Xiaodan Zhang, who will present for CEC.
Thank you. I have now made Ms. Wang Ting and Ms. Zhang Xiaodan the presenter.
Yeah. Hello.
We have you on the screen, Xiaodan. Welcome.
Yeah.
Good afternoon.
Can you hear me? Okay.
We can hear you. We can see you. Everything is fine. Hello, Xiaodan.
Okay. Sure.
不是我们。
Moment, please. And I'm very pleased to be here to introduce our China Environmental Labeling Program to promote green public procurement implementation. I'm Xiaodan Zhang, come from China EDC and CEC. Firstly, I would like to introduce my organization, EDC and CEC. EDC names Environmental Development Center of the Ministry of Ecology and Environmental. It's a comprehensive scientific research institution. It provides support and service of environmental management for the ministry. EDC also play an important role in regional and international environmental cooperation and communication. And also, EDC joined UNEP on the One Planet Network on SPP mark program in 2013 and acted as co-leader in 2019. The CEC, China Environmental United Certification Center, is affiliated to the EDC. It's a professional certification and technical service body committed to environment protection and addressing climate change. It's mainly engaged in policy research, standard development, and project implementation in the area of environmental labeling programs and green public procurement, greenhouse gas validation and verification, energy saving auditor, and green supply chain management, and so on. Since 2013, CEC has been working as EDC implementation entity participating in UNEP, One Planet Network on SPP program. Now I'd like to introduce a brief history of China Environmental Labeling Program on SPP implementation. The China Environmental Labeling Program was initiated in 1993, development and management by our ministry, and its operation and implementation by EDC and CEC. Firstly, it's a policy instrument by using market economy instrument to promote sustainable development and improve of the environmental quality. It can play an important role to promote industry green transmission development, also enhance the level of enterprises into environmental management, driving green and low carbon economy development. It can also raise the level of public and private awareness of environmental protection and lead scientific consumption and green consumption. Until now, it's more than 120 standards of China environmental labeling product, and more than 5,000 enterprises were awarded the label and involved 930,000 types of products. It's a time of our environmental labeling on GPP. The program, the eco-labeling program is established in 1993, and in 2006, based on the environmental protection requirements, and also considering the technical level and the market maturity of the products. The two ministries, Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Environmental, cooperated and joined issued a document on opinion of the implementation of Green Public Procurement on environmental labeling product, and also the first product list, which initiated the GPP Eco-Label program. And in 2008, EDC and the CEC launched the CGPN network based on the GPP development in international society. And also in 2018, the total 22 batches product list were issued by the two ministries, including 69 product categories with more than 390,000 types of products, which big progress from the beginning. And in 2019, the Green Public Procurement mechanism was adjusted by two ministries, and the first product item list were issued with 90 product categories. It also a kind of a document were issued. And in 2019, a new innovation mechanism of Green Public Procurement comes into practice in local government. The first mandatory procurement policy on environmental labeling product was issued in Hainan province, which will strengthen the power of the GPP program. This graph shows the relationship between Green Public Procurement and national government procurement. The data at the lower shows from 2010 to 2019 the scale of Green Public Procurement products. The maximum amount reached of 27.15 billion US dollars in 2014. And from the above figure, you can see the proportion of the GPP products to the similar products in the same year. And also you can see the highest proportion reached of 90.8% of the same kind of products in 2017. In the figure on the right side shows the situation of Green Public Procurement in 2018 and 2019. For example, in 2018, the total size of government procurement was 552.62 billion US dollars, where the scale of GPP products was 25.39 billion US dollars, which was about 4.6% of the total scale of government procurement in that year. After implementation of GPP in China for several years, we can see the GPP mechanism is an innovative practice on national finance policy. And also from the statistical data shows Like the GPP can also be a national environmental policy to foster achievement the target of pollutant emission reduction. As you know, the Ecolabelling program is a kind of tool for environmental protection through the leading of product standards. The environmental labeling program can reach the good environmental performance, including the reduction of air pollutant, water pollutant, solid and hazard waste, chemicals, construction materials, also energy saving and resource consumption, and so on, which almost cover all environmental aspects. Example, in 2019, after collecting education, calculation, and analysis of the data of the several eco-labeling products, we can see the contribution of the air pollutant by environmental labeling program, environmental labeling products, which reduce SO2, NOx, VOC, and CO2 by the thousands of tons. It's not only for the pollutant emission reduction, but also addressing the climate change in the world. It's also an example of GPP by purchasing 3 cans of environmental labeling products, furniture, office supplies, and copy paper. In 2016, it achieved a good environmental performance by the emission reduction of VOCs for more than higher SO2, NOx, carbon dioxide, PM2.5, COD, TP, and ammonia nitrogens, and so on. There's also a very typical exam in 2010, and based on the standard of environmental labeling product on green printing, 3 ministries jointly issued the notice of implementation of green printing on school textbooks. And till now, all the primary and the secondary schools textbooks are adopted green printing, involving 1.3 billion textbooks and readings. This program not only made the printing industry to a big progress on green innovation development, but also made eco-labeling product came into every family, every child, to raise the environmental awareness vastly. These photos showed some activities and the ceremony on environmental labeling program and also on green public procurement. The persons are ministers and leaders from Chinese government, including the Ministry of Environmental and the Ministry of Finance and NDRC. And you can see the executive director of UNEP, Mr. Eric Sortham, who attended in the International Forum on Eco-Labor and the Green Public Procurement and activities on the 25th anniversary of China Environmental Labeling Program. The actives also great publicities to promote the progress of sustainable consumption and production in China. Now the green public procurement mechanism adjusted in 2019 by the Chinese governments with a document of the notice on the adjusted the government procurement mechanism of environmental labeling products and the product item list. After that, the public GPP product list will change into product item list. The item list includes some information of product categories and technical standards, which makes the government purchaser more choice for the priority procurement. The first list including 90 product categories based on the technical criteria of environmental labeling product. And meanwhile, a certification database is established by government also, which provide the certificates of products that indicate the product have conformed with the requirement of the criteria of item list on the GPP. The China environmental labeling product certificates should be transmitted to the database dynamically and timely, and to support the GPP activities. For the product not included in the item list category, the document allows the purchaser to write the relevant standards and propose the relevant environmental performance requirement during their procurement process to promote the green products implementation in GPP. Based on the environmental labeling program experience, we also focus on the hot point of environmental and society. CEC development some new criteria and the new certification project, especially to meet the local government requirement, such as the guarding certification program in the furniture, and the low VOC certification program, and hazard material limitation certification program, and the green supply chain certification program, and so on. According with that, the CEC support green public procurement innovation in the local government level. Some new GPP schemes initiate and the new certification project were adopted by some provinces such as Zhejiang province, Hebei province, Guangdong province, and so on. And CEC also support the SPP implementation in Beijing 2022 Winter Olympic Game and Paralympic Games. Developed green guidance, GPP guidance to integrate the sustainability requirements into the whole procurement process of the game. The guidance now consists of 12 technical criteria, including paper, plastic, metal, textile, wood, electronics, and building material, decorating material, logistic service, and cleaning service, and so on. The further perspective of China environmental labeling product and green public procurement, I think still we have we need to do something in the 3 levels. The first one is mechanism building, policy research, and international cooperation, especially explore incentive policy to enlarge the scale and scope of the GPP. The second is the technical level to focus on the hot issues, especially for low carbon, climate change, and energy saving, and plastical, and to develop more criteria to support GPP in national level and the local level, and also carry out the performance assessment with some communication internationally. The third level is to raise the efficiency of implementation of GPP to make more manufacturers and more consumers join us, including some training and capacity building. This year is 15th year of China environmental labeling program with green public procurement. We would like to take a ceremony and a workshop to summarize the experience, performance, challenges, and lessons. And also would like to welcome you join us and to share your exciting experience. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Xiaodan, for this excellent presentation. Very informative indeed, and really focusing on the progress you have achieved, but also on the way forward. We can take questions now for a few minutes. If you can stay here, Xiaodan, yeah?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, okay.
Yes,
So Sophie, if you...
We had two questions from Dr. Chayot in Thailand, from the Thai SCP network. He says, excellent preparation and information. First question, do you have targets related to the percentage of green public procurement in total public procurement? And what are the potential challenges and issues you face? So is there a specific percentage of GPP, a specific target that you set?
Xiaodan, did you get the questions or should I repeat? Xiaodan?
Yeah, sorry, from our side, we have no list plan, but I think nowadays we are planning the 14th development strategy in the whole country, and I guess maybe the Ministry of Finance or our Ministry of Environment will consolidate.
Okay, the question, Xiaodan, was, do you have targets of GPP in the prioritized categories? Like, do you, but I suppose the target is 100%. I mean, you want to have all the prioritized listed categories to be green, right? At a rate of 100%.
Yeah, well, I just said we have not yet have this target related to the GPP, the target in
Okay.
Yeah, in future. But nowadays we are making the whole 15th development strategy in the whole country. I think maybe some governments considering it now.
Okay. The second question from Shayad was, what are your challenges and how are you addressing them?
There, I think from our side, we should develop more criteria on the more products to support the government procurement. And from the procurement side, still I think the efficiency not too much. So I think still we should research and make more method to push to rise the efficiency of the GPP.
Okay, I have the same question also in that we alluded to with Rowena earlier. Isn't the Ecolabelling program limiting the competition on the market, limiting also the supply that the government can access in public procurement.
From the former GPP mechanism, the government issued the product list, which including some manufacturers and the producers and the type with producers, and also the Ecolabel certificate. It's an easy way to make the purchasing to select producers by the list. And now it changed to the item list. There's no more information about manufacturer and no more information about product list. So I think it's not many limitation for the purchaser, and they can make more choice by the list, just to make sure the list they want, the product they would like to buy, to conform with the criteria of the GPP.
Thank you very much. Sophie, do we have more questions?
So in Dr. Chayat's question, he also asked what are the key success factors which, according to you, which help GPP implementation. Can you give us examples of what makes GPP implementation successful?
I think there have many successful cases in the world, in different country and different city and different program. In China, based on the eco-label product, the Green Public Procurement have reliable, it's a kind of reliable of the green product, and also as the eco-labeling program, it's also a national program, so it can provide scientific the criteria, and also to make the criteria advance and make the producers reliable to support the SPP program. I think it's also a good experience, especially China is a big country, and the awareness on the green product not just so popular. And for the purchasing, also not so many knowledge and experience to know how to buy the green products. So it's easy for them to buy the right product in GPP.
Thank you. We have a question from Felix. He's telling you, hello, wonderful presentation. It's Felix Lam. How does the adoption of green label in private sector procurement? Is it also helping private sector procurement?
The Ecolabel program is a voluntary program. All the manufacturer and the enterprise can apply to have the to use the criteria and also to apply this certification for the producers. If the producter, if they think their product themselves can conform the criteria, especially on the environmental some protection requirement, they can apply the certificate and get the certificate for the producers. So it's just need their want to change their production to the green direction. If they want to, they will come. Not to doesn't matter if it's the public enterprise or some private enterprises.
Thank you. But are you monitoring green procurement in the private sector?
No, we have no divided list. Now we have about 5,000 enterprises. I'm not sure, but I'm sure they have some private enterprises also.
Thank you very much. And you have a comment. Thank you very much for the good presentation. But one slide showed the pollutant gases are still high. How can you monitor and evaluate for GPP and Ecolabelling from the enterprise or industries? Talking about the pollutant gases. Xiaodan, can you hear me?
Wang Jing replied.
If I understand well, I would like to take a moment to explain.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just as Mrs. Zhang introduced, we have made the environmental performance evaluation for the China environmental labeling GPP products. There have one factors related the air pollution factors.
Mm-hmm.
We designed a kind of benchmarking methodology to considering the mixture of the elements such as the air pollution factors and also benchmarking related for the China environmental products elements. So we use that methodology to evaluate how the environmental labeling products are awarded to contribute to the air pollution. And however, you see the air pollution situation is there's still a long way needed to be done. So we made this and made the effort in the several years ago, and there's still need lots of efforts towards this direction. So just as Ms. Zhang have told that have said in the future there need some policies or method or mechanism to enlarging the scope for the China environmental labeling GPP implementation.
Thank you. Thank you, Jack. And the last question is from Lunchakorn from GIZ, Thailand. Dear Chowdan, thank you for the informative presentation. As you mentioned about the certificate database established by the government, I would like to ask if it is the same platform as government procurement, or is it separated? Which institution is responsible for the certificate database?
I'm not so sure if I will understand your meaning. The database of public procurement is is established in the Ministry of Finance. But it's very difficult to get the data from it because they also gathered by the different province and not so good job, I guess, to gather the data. But I'm sure they have a database on the government procurement. And for the certification database, it's just set up by the another ministry called market surveillance administration, like that. And all of the certification certificate will be involved by the organization, and not only include China environmental labeling, but also other energy saving producers and low carbon producers like that, and will be involved. And from our side, as we operated the China environmental labeling program for more than 25 years, so we also have some data which made by ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chowdan. With this, I think we will end our webinar. I would like to thank the speakers for their excellent presentations. We will be sending you the presentations in a few days, and I would like to inform you that the next webinar will be thematic, and we will inform you soon of the topic of this webinar and the date. With this, I would like to wish you a good evening and hope to see you soon in our next series of webinars. Thank you very much and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye everyone. Thank you. Thanks, Lunchakorn, for your kind words. Xiao Yod, etc. Bye bye.
Thank you for your narration.